What's up, everybody? Today we're talking about a guy named Jephthah and really asking the question, can God use someone like me? Can God use someone like you? So if you'd like some of the answer to that question, jump on in and let's check it out. Hope you have a great day today. Welcome to the Equipped Disciple channel. My name is Rick McClatchy. I will be your host. We are here to be and to make disciples of Jesus, and we do that through daily devos, through Sunday sermons, and through other discipleship resources. We are here to equip you. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome in. We are jumping into Judges chapter 11. We're going to talk about some of the story of Jephthah, like kicking off that little part of the story, and he is the next judge in the process of the whole book of Judges. So Judges chapter 11, and we're kind of asking the question of ourselves today, can God use someone like me? Can God use someone like you? And that's where we want to answer this question. You and me, all the stuff that we bring to the table, the good stuff, the bad stuff. Can God use someone like me? Can God use someone like let's just take it to the person where you would write them off. You would disqualify them because of something in their past. Maybe the family they were raised in. Who knows? Who knows all the different things that we could decide to kind of hold against people. And so just to ask ourselves this question, how does God treat people? How does God operate? So let's go ahead and jump into the text and see what the Bible has to say. Verse 1, Jephthah the Gileadite was a valiant warrior. Sounds a little bit like Gideon. So he was a valiant warrior, but he was the son of a prostitute, and Gilead was his father. So we see a little bit of his identity coming on out in this now. So he was the son of a prostitute. Gilead's wife bore him sons, and when they grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, "You will have no inheritance. You have no inheritance in our father's family because you are the son of another woman." So Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob. When some worthless men joined Jephthah and went on raids with him. So isn't it interesting, this consistent theme? We're going to see it later in the Bible, at least from where this is happening with King David and his ragtag group of men that gathered around him. They were people that were in debt, that were, just in all kinds of bad situations in life, like hopeless and full of despair. And yet they gathered around David because he was a leader that they found some hope and some confidence that, hey, we can accomplish something together. So they went on raids with him. They don't really specify where their raids were going, but the assumption is that it's against like the Ammonites, whoever was kind of like causing the most trouble for Israel at this time. And sometime later, it says in verse 4, the Ammonites fought against Israel. When the Ammonites made war with Israel, the elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah from the land of Tob. So here we see that the very people that pushed him away, now when they get into a season of need, something's going on, now they're like, oh, hey, maybe that would have been good. Maybe it would have been good to have that guy because he actually seems kind of talented. He kind of seems like he might be really helpful. And so they said to him in verse 6, "Come and be our commander. Let's fight the Ammonites." And Jephthah replied to the elders of Gilead, "Didn't you hate me and drive me out of my father's family? Why then have you come to me now when you are here in trouble?" Like, what's up, guys? What's up? Come on. And so they answered Jephthah, that's true. I mean, at least they acknowledged it, right? At least they didn't try to be like, "Oh, what are you talking about? We didn't do that." No, they're like, "Yeah, that's true. But now we turn to you. Come with us. Fight the Ammonites, and you will become the leader of all the inhabitants of Gilead." So Jephthah said to them, If you are bringing me back to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord gives them to me, I will be your leader. They're saying here, come and be our commander. So they're asking him to be their military leader for a short season with really no other strings attached to this request. He comes back and he says, but if I'm going to fight for you and the Lord gives us the victory, I want to be your full-on leader. So when we talked about Deborah a couple chapters ago, Deborah she became, part of that commander type role where she was helping the military side of things, but she really started out in that leader role where she was much more of kind of the governmental, almost in the place of how a king kind of operates. The elders of Gilead in verse 10 said to Jephthah, the Lord is our witness if we don't do as you say. And so they're like, yep, we're going to do exactly what you just talked about. And, the Lord is our witness, they're basically like, I'll swear to God. That's how they're being right there to say, no, dude, we got you, we hear you and we agree with you. That is a reasonable request. Verse 11, so Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him their leader and commander. And Jephthah repeated all his terms in the presence of the Lord at Mizpah. And so it's interesting that up to this point, there is no significant acknowledgement of God, really, from Jephthah's side of things, or to the Gileadite side of things. There's no obvious, no apparent acknowledgement of God until these moments of not conflict, but really important moments that people be true to what they're going to say. And now all of a sudden, Jephthah is interested in doing it in front of God. So the people made him their leader and commander, and Jephthah repeated all these terms in the presence of the Lord at Mizpah. And Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites, asking, what do you have against me, and that you have come to fight me in my land? And so Jephthah very quickly is taking on the identity of being the leader and commander of the Ammonites and just jumping right in. And so the king of the Ammonites in verse 13 said to Jephthah's messengers, when Israel came from Egypt, they seized my land from Arnon to the Jabbok and the Jordan. Now restore it peacefully. Jephthah again sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites to tell him, this is what Jephthah says, Israel did not take away the land of Moab or the land of the Ammonites. So he's totally disagreeing with his recollection of history here. And so he says, this is how it really went down, bro. He's like, no, when they came from Egypt, Israel traveled through the wilderness to the Red Sea and came to Kadesh. Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom saying, hey, please let us travel through your land. But the king of Edom would not listen. They also sent messengers to the king of Moab, but he refused. So Israel stayed in Kadesh. Then they traveled through the wilderness and around the lands of Edom and Moab. So they had to go around because both of these situations, they refused to give them passage through their land. They came to the east side of the land of Moab and camped on the other side of the Arnon, but did not enter into the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was the boundary of Moab. So he's like, hey, we respected what they said. We didn't like it, but we respected it. We went around them. We didn't cross into their land. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites. So not the Ammonites. Remember, it gets a little tricky, with all the people that we're talking about, but he's talking to the Amorites, not the Ammonites. So the Israel sent messengers to the to Sihon, king of the Amorites, king of Heshbon, and Israel said to him, please let us travel through your land to our country. But Sihon would not trust Israel to pass through his territory. And you can't totally blame a guy for having that kind of concern, but at the same time, if you're going to build a relationship with people, it's going to require some trust. Instead, Sihon gathered all his troops, camped at Jahaz, and fought with Israel. So he did the opposite, right? He was like, heck no, you're not coming through my land, dude. Like, no, I'm not going to allow this. And then the Lord God of Israel handed over Sihon and all his troops to Israel, and they defeated them. So Israel took possession of the entire land of the Amorites who lived in that country. They took possession of all the territory of the Amorites from the Arnon to the Jabbok and from the wilderness to the Jordan. The Lord God of Israel has now driven out the Amorites before his people Israel, and will you now force us out? Isn't it true? Isn't it true that you can have whatever your God Chemosh conquers for you, and we can have whatever the Lord our God conquers for us? Come on now. Man, that's a huge statement right there that I want you to kind of hang on to. It is one of the lessons that I want you to focus on. I love where Jephthah's going with this conversation. He's like, you know what? Actually, you can have whatever your God gives you, and I'll take whatever my God gives me, because he knows that Yahweh is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, which could actually be said the God of gods, because, I mean, we know that the gods are not real gods, like they're not actual deities like God is, because he is separate, holy unto himself. But we do know that people, interact with, I would say, these demons as if they are gods, right? And so, isn't it true, verse 24, that you can have whatever your God Chemosh conquers for you, and we can have whatever the Lord our God conquers for us? Now, are you any better than Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab? If you don't remember that story, it's all the way back from the book of Numbers, and Balak's trying to get a curse put on Israel and all kinds of stuff. He's paying somebody, and the only thing that ever comes out of his mouth is blessing, is blessing, is blessing. So that's also the kind of God that we serve, that even when your enemies are coming against you, even when enemies are coming against your church, whatever it might be, that God can take the intent that the enemy has to bring curses upon you to actually end up bringing blessings on you. God is great. He's in control. He's got you. Don't worry. Don't fret. Trust in God. How? Verse 25. Now, are you any better than Balak? Like, are you any better than him? Can you perform any better than Balak? I don't think so. So don't be coming at us thinking you're gonna curse us and you'll end up just blessing us. So verse 26, while Israel lived 300 years in Heshbon and Aroer and their surrounding villages, and in all the cities that are on the banks of the Arnon, why didn't you take them back at that time? So he's kind of like, bro, really, right now is when you're going to try to bring up this issue? You're going to try to say that we stole this land from you? Why have we been here for 300 years and nobody said anything about it? I've not sinned against you, but you are doing me wrong by fighting against me. Let the Lord, who is the judge, decide today between the Israelites and the Ammonites. And so Jephthah does another really great job of deflecting, the topic onto the Lord. And we'll see in the next video, as we continue down the journey of Jephthah, that he really did put this in the hands of God. And but unfortunately, you'll see a part of his story where I think he misunderstood a little bit of God's nature. We'll talk about that more in tomorrow's video, but it makes for an interesting point. But the king of the Ammonites would not listen to Jephthah's message that he sent him. And so we're gonna close down there, before the full story lays out of what happened. But it's kind of the lead up, and there's just a couple of lessons that I want to focus on. The first one being God uses the unexpected, because they're talking about Jephthah basically like he's a piece of garbage, because he's the son of a prostitute. You're not of us. We hate you. We're sending you away. Get up on out of here. And he leaves. But God says, no, I've got my hand on you, son. I'm going to do some great things. It doesn't matter that your birth family is not of the best kind of reputation. It doesn't matter how you feel about yourself. You know, just like when he came to Gideon and he said, you are a mighty warrior. And Gideon had all kinds of evidences in his life why that was not true. But the word of God is truer. It's truer than the feelings that you might have, the emotions you might be going through. So knowing the truth of God's story in your life and in general helps battle against the lies of the enemy. And this is where they came at him, the Ammonites came at him, the king there was like, you guys stole our land, dude. Like, what are you doing in our land? And he had to confront them with the actual truth of how it actually went down, how the story actually played out. And also called them out to say, like, hey, if you think that this is true, why you been okay with it for 300 years? You know, like what's like, obviously the people in leadership before you did not agree with you. Or they probably would have done something about it. And then he just knew that God's justice always prevails. So he was like strongly dependent upon God, saying, and I just love that verse where he throws it at him. He's like, hey, you know what? You can have any land your God can get you. It's kind of like Elijah on Mount Carmel with all the prophets of Baal. He's like, oh, maybe your God is going potty. You know, maybe your God is sleeping. Maybe you need to be louder so you can wake him up. Because he's just trying to call out the ridiculousness of trying to serve any other God but Yahweh, because he is God. He's the King of kings, the Lord of lords, the creator of heaven and earth. He's above all, in all, through all. Oh my goodness, like he is God. He is awesome. He deserves our trust. He certainly deserves our trust more than our own understanding does. And so even when man disagrees or rebels against it, God's justice always prevails. God's justice always prevails. Trust God. That's the message, right? God can use anyone. Know the story of God in your life. Know the actual history so that you can confront the stinking lies of the enemy, and then trust that God's justice is going to prevail. Trust that God is in control. He's got his hand on the situation. He's got his hand on you. Man, God bless you. Be encouraged today by this great news of what a great God we serve. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow.
Hey, if you're getting value out of these videos, if you could just make sure you hit the like button, maybe subscribe to the channel. YouTube is suggesting a video right about here for you to check out. So go ahead and check out the next video.